परिपूर्णगुणार्णवाय विश्वोदयस्थितिलयो नियतिप्रदाय ज्ञानप्रदाय विबुधासुरसौख्यदुःख सत्कारणाय वितताय नमो नमस्ते। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। देवं नारायणं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरुंश्च गीतार्थं वक्ष्यामि लेशतः। लक्ष्मीनारायणं नत्वा पूर्णबोधान् गुरूनपि कुर्मः श्रीकृष्णगीताया भाष्यादुक्तार्थसङ्ग्रहम्। Harihi Om. Welcome to the Pratipadartha session. We are looking at the word by word meaning of Bhagavad-Gita. This is one of the two initiatives that we are running under the Purushottama Yoga Club. On one side, we meet every morning at 6 o'clock in India time to chant approximately 100 shlokas of Bhagavad-Gita in a format where it helps people to get familiar. It's a guided chanting session where somebody will lead us through every line, and people in the speaker panel can develop the Vakshuddhi by trying to repeat it on the mic. And there will be assistance provided to get the clarity right. And that will help us achieve the complete recitation of Bhagavad Gita in a week, and we repeat that week on week basis. And the whole purpose being that the more we hear, the more we chant, the better we get with the recitation. And then when we recite the shlokas in a better way, we will be able to accurately place the words in the shlokas. The minute that starts happening, we will know that these words are quite common to all of us because Samskrita being the mother tongue of all our mother tongues, it's a very known language. Unlike the popular belief, we think that Samskrita, first of all, we give it the title of Deva Bhasha. It is nonetheless, but it is also our language. It is our own language. It is our own Mata. Samskrita Bharati is our own Mata. So when we do the proper, accurate recitation, we will understand the words a little better. But then that is not enough because the word structures could be slightly different. So what we do is that we have another meeting every Saturday evening, 5 o'clock. We meet here to look at the word by word meaning of the Bhagavad Gita shlokas. So that way, that will help us get the basic understanding of Bhagavad Gita right. And that's the whole purpose. The whole purpose is to get the foundation right so that when we repeatedly contemplate on these shlokas, when we repeatedly chant, by knowing the words behind them, by knowing the meaning of those words behind them, it is bound to give us a lot of good artha, unraveling of the deeper meaning that will happen over time. It's a natural phenomenon for a lot of people. Every time we read the Bhagavad Gita, every second time we study the Bhagavad Gita, we all have a new eureka moment. That's a very well known fact. This is primarily to aid in that process. And in this session, we are trying to look at the word by word understanding as accurately as we can, because it's also a known fact that almost every version of Bhagavad Gita, no matter how strongly we try to call it as it is, will have one unique flavor, which is unique to that particular version. Otherwise, those publishers, those authors would not have bothered to even come up with such a work. Everyone will have their own eureka moment, and that will be reflected in each of the works of Bhagavad Gita. And there are more than 5,000 standard commentaries on this scripture. What we are trying to do is we are looking at word by word. So in the last three sessions, this has just started about 3 weeks ago. In the last three sessions, we have looked at till shloka number 35 in the first chapter. To broadly put, the first shloka of the first chapter, where we popularly call it as Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre, we try to understand it to be the breaking of the inertia, where Dhritarashtra speaks. Dhritarashtra, also Dhriti, is also kind of an inertia in the state of being, right? So when that speaks, when the sound opens up, there is a break in that inertia. The inertia broken is primarily the inquiry happening to the demise of or the fall of Bhishmacharya. Though the story calls it as the demise of Bhishmacharya, the actual reality is it's the fall of Bhishmacharya. Right? So upon the fall of Bhishmacharya, there is a lot of inquiry happening from Dhritarashtra to Sanjaya. Okay, help me understand what happened. And we are into this first chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, which is the 25th chapter of Bhishma Parva, where we hear the final question from Dhritarashtra. Before we are led into the Bhagavad Gita, the complete discourse. And that is the Dharma Kshetra. Okay, they're all bound by Dharma. and Kurukshetra, they are all in their moment of reckoning, right? And then Samaveta, Jujutsaha, okay, you also tell me that they're all eager to fight. Nobody is abdicated from the responsibility. Mamakaha Pandavaha cha eva Kima Kurvata. What did they do? That, we have to understand the whole premise of that is how did Bhishmacharya fall? In the first 12 odd slokas, when Sanjaya starts to explain, sloka number 2 to sloka number 12, sloka number 13, the 12 slokas, we get the theme that there was a lot of nervy beginning from the Kaurava side. That's what we hear. Duryodhana jumps off the chariot, things like that, right? And then goes on to rant, and his entire sense of proportion has gone upside down. And this is also consistent with what we understood from the first sloka of the Purushottama Yoga. Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakam, everything is upside down. Sloka number 14 onward, we get to see that, the Pandavas had a very divine beginning, like, in terms of the number of conches being blown, the way the conches started, synchronizing themselves, and then how Arjuna was very confidently marching forward, Pravritte Shastra Sampate, around Shloka number 20 or all. Pravritte Shastra Sampate, Dhanurudyamya Pandava. Very confidently, he's like, in the developing forces, he wants to go forward, like, and then he says, Sena Yoru Hayor Madhye, Radam Sapaya Nechika, like, go in the front. I want to be in the middle of these two sides. I don't want to be behind here. I want to be a little ahead. So that goes very nicely. And then from shloka number 29, 28, 29, Kripaya Paraya Vishnu Vishidan Vidam Abhravi. Like, a lot of compassion filled in the heart. He starts to decline, Arjuna. And just before that, we could see he starts developing the attachment. From shloka number 25, 26, he starts developing the attachment where all the Parameshwasa, Maheshwasa, like, the great archer, the mighty archer, Vikranta, the very victorious one, Samitinjayaha, well versed, great warriors. All of these adjectives suddenly start appearing to be Acharyaha, Pitaraha, Putraha, like, all the relatives, like, relatives and friends, like, the Guru, the grandfather, the grandson, children. Suddenly the attachment, suddenly the language very much changes from Sanjaya, right? The way he is describing. And then from sloka number 29 onward, we started looking at the transformation taking place in Arjuna, where he says, Drustvemam Swajanam Krishna, Yuyutsum Samupastitam. Like, look at this, my own people, oh Krishna, okay, people who are eager to fight, and then they are all gathered in this war field, right? This is the transformation we see. And we went on till about sloka number 34, where we get to hear this line. The guy who said that, Pravritte Shastra Sampate Dhanurudyamya, the guy who was confidently marching forward, wanted to go ahead of the entire pack, in the marching of the army. That guy suddenly, his Gandiva slips off from the hand. And secondly, sloka number 34, the last line that we heard in the previous session was that, Etanahamtumichami Nato Madhusudana. I don't want to kill these people, even if I am slain. Right? That is where we stop. Now, this is a very bad moment. Like, you can imagine what kind of if this entire situation, if this entire conversation were to be heard even by few foot soldiers, among those 7 Akshohini Sainya, we can imagine what kind of an impact that would have on the entire Pandava army, right? It's a very big moment of reckoning. But nonetheless, today we are looking at sloka number 35 onward. For consistency's sake, the sloka numbers could be here and there, slightly here and there, because the number of lines that they group as one sloka could go a bit here and there, while the slokas could be little more consistent. We will, for the consistency's sake, we will refer to the link that has been pinned to the room. So when we click on this link, we will see that sloka number 35 goes on like this. Okay, so we just heard in the previous sloka that, etam nahantum ichchami dhinatopi madhusudana. So we will now look at sloka number 35, which is what has been linked, and then we will proceed further. Perhaps for the next 1 hour or so, a little more than that, till about 6:15, 6:20 India time, I would go on explaining as many slokas as possible. Please try and make notes, and then please park your questions aside. And at about 6:15, 6:20, we will let you in. You can come up. I mean, you can perhaps come up even now and then maybe disturb me, but to have some rigor in terms of how much we cover the ground, please make notes. And if there are any questions, please to come up on the stage and then have the discussion. Today we would like to wrap up as close to 6:30 as possible. We wouldn't want to stretch beyond 6:30, primarily because at 7 o'clock, Pravina Bhagini is holding another room on Tirupavai. These are the Tamil Pasurams written by Goda Devi, one of the great saint poetesses of South India. And Dhanur Masa, the Sagittarian month in the solar Hindu calendar, is very special for the Aradhana of Sri Krishna, and also taking the Tirupavai study. So a very unique session where we are getting to hear the Tirupavai being explained in English. So we can perhaps have a quick coffee break kind of a provision for ourselves before we can come back at 7 o'clock for that room, which is held under the club called Yesterday Equals Tomorrow. Details can be had from Pravina Bhagini, who's in the speaker session or section, or under my profile, you will be able to find that. Okay. Shloka number 35, I have given in the link. We will quickly proceed now. Api Trailokya Rajyasya Heto Kim Mahi Krite Nihatya Dharta Rashtrannah Kapritisya Janardana. So, when we come a little below, the structure is that we will look at how the Padacheda, how the words can be split. The Padacheda says, Api Trailokya Rajyasya Hetoho Kim Nu Mahikrite Nihatya Dharta Rashtram Nah Ka Pritihi Syat Janardana. So there is only one sandhi. There is only one place where the letter modification happens, which is Syat Janardana becomes Syat Janardana. So ta in front of ja also becomes ja. Okay, there is a sandhi. We will see how the prose order, how this sounds when we hear it in a prose order. When we hear it in a prose order, it comes like Trailokya Rajyasya api hetoho. Okay, in brackets it says Hantum na ichchami, because this is coming from the previous shloka. Etan na hantum ichchami. I don't want to kill these people. Hantum marne ko na ichchami. Okay, na ichcha karta hu. Like Trailokya Rajyasya api hetoho. Hantum na ichchami mahikrite kim nu he janardana dhartarashtra nihatya nahaka pritihi syat. Let's see what kind of a meaning it displays. When we click on little above on the page, you have a link called dictionary. When you click on the dictionary, we will see that Trailokya Rajyasya Trailokya Rajyasya is of the Rajya, of the three world kingdom, of the kingdom of the three worlds, of the kingdom of the three worlds. Okay, api also. Heto for the sake. Hetu means positive, right? So hetu means heto for the sake. Hantum na ichcha, which is coming from the previous shloka. We just brought the same word from the previous shloka, right? Which means that even for the sake of the three worlds, okay, kingdom of the three worlds, I wouldn't want to kill them. So the emotion is getting more and more deeper. Kimnu mahikrite kimnu, for the sake of earth, the land, the piece of land on earth. Kimnu, how then? Which means how then can I kill them for the sake of a small piece of land? Hey Janardana, Jananam Ardhaya. So Janardana is a very nice name. He is the destroyer of the people, right? At the end of the Pralaya Kala, that's one way of looking at it. But yeah, the names can have multiple deeper meanings. This website also have a app. Please explore this website. There are some brilliant pieces of information that will come. And in one section of that app, you will also see all the different names of Sri Krishna and I think only Sri Krishna being analyzed, okay, in a way. But more details of the Nama Gita, the different names of Krishna being called out in Bhagavad-Gita. You could also get to see Pravina Bhagini's YouTube channel. So please have a look through her profile. You will see a link to her YouTube channel, and she has already given a couple of discourses on that subject under the same Purushottama Yoga Club. If interested, do let us know. We could perhaps arrange for more talks. Okay, so but nonetheless, hey Janardana, Dhartarashtra Nihatya Naha Ka Pritihi Syat, which means Dhartarashtra, Dhritarashtrasya Putraha. Dhartarashtran Nihatya, sons of Dhritarashtra, Nihatya, having killed, marker, like Hatya Karke, Naha Hame ka preeti hi, kya preeti syat mil sakta hai, can be like, milega or something like that, right? So it means he's telling, even for the sake of the kingdom of the three worlds, I wouldn't want to kill them. What then for the sake of a piece of land? That is the whole story, right? The entire war is happening for the piece of land. Okay, hey Janardana, oh Janardana, uh, by killing them, what joy will we get? Kya ka priti hi can be looked into us, what joy or what fun or what greater good can be of us, like ka priti hi, what pleasure can we achieve? So let's quickly see how the Aurobindo translation says. Aurobindo interpretation, when we click again on the shloka, there is a link on the top just next to dictionary. There is a Aurobindo shloka. When you click on shloka, when you come down, come back to the original page, you'll see Sri Aurobindo's interpretation. It says, "O Janardana, I would not consent to slay even for the kingdom of the three worlds. How then for earth? What pleasures can be ours after killing the sons of Dhritarashtra?" I think very accurate interpretation. If you read the Hindi, I am bad at reading Hindi, so I will not attempt. But if you read Hindi, you will see that the Anvaya and the Hindi translations perhaps go a lot more hand in hand. They go close to each other. Now I'll click on the next tab, come on the top of the screen. You will see previous and the next. Previous will take us to the previous shloka, and the next will take us to the next shloka, which is shloka number 30. We will move on. So basically, he says, like, after explaining his physical condition, I think shloka number 30 upward, we were continuously looking at, his physical condition. Like, see the Timamagatrani, my limbs are getting frozen, Mukam cha parishushati, my face is getting dried up. So that is the start of the entire, Vishada. His entire grief started with the physical condition. Then he goes on to explain Nimittani cha pashyami, Viparitani. I only see obvious, ominous signs. Nacha shreyo nu pashyami. I don't see anything greater good. Like sloka number 31, 32. We hear all these words. I don't want to get into this war. And then he says, I don't want to kill them. Etana hantu michchami. Gnatopi madhusudana. Even if I were to be slain. Okay, even for the sake of the three world kingdoms, like Bhuhu, Bhuva, Swaha. These three worlds is basically can be looked at in multiple different ways. One is the Bhuvaha Swargaloka. That is one way. The past, present, future. There are different. Then there is Om Tat Sat. There are different ways. But in the popular interpretation will be Bhuhu Bhuvaha Suvaha. Like the Bhuloka, Bhuvaloka, and Swargaloka. Okay, Trilokya, three loka, the kingdom of the three worlds also I wouldn't want. What then for the sake of a piece of earth? What pleasure will we get by killing the sons of Dhritarashtra who are our own people? So there are a lot of implied meanings, right? So next loka. Papamevashrayedasman atvaitanatatayinah tasmannarha vayam hantum dhartarashtran svabandhavan swajanam hi katham hatva sukhina syama madhava. I think three lines are given here. I think this website perhaps will close chapter number 1 with only 46 because I think this is a mix of two. But nonetheless, let us see. For the consistency's sake, we will follow this website. Padacheda, when you come below, the breakdown of the words. Okay, papam eva ashrayet. Papam eva papameva. Eva ashrayet eva ashrayet. So there is some sandhi. Savarna dirgha sandhi. Eva, a plus a becomes a. Ashrayet asman ashrayet asman. So ta becomes da. So becomes the. Papameva shrayed asman hatva etan hatvaitan. So there is another sandhi, so called the vruddhi sandhi. A plus a becomes I. Hatva etan hatvaitan etan atatayinah etan atatayinah. That's not a sandhi, that's a samoha. But yeah, hatvaitan atatayinah. So there are a couple of sandhis. Eva ashrayet, eva ashrayet, evashrayet asman evashrayet asman, two sandhis, and hatva etan hatvaitan, there are three sandhis. Then the next line, the padacheda says tasman na arhaha, tasmat na tasman na. So ta plus na becomes na, tu becomes n in front of na, just like how in front of ja it becomes ja, ta in front of na also becomes na. It's called the Anunasika Sandhi, but yeah, we will not bother about it. We'll get used to this. The more we see, the more familiar we'll get with this. Tasmat na tasman na anunachika sandhi. Na arhaha narhaha. So that's the Savarna Dirgha. A plus A becomes A Dirgha A. Vayam hantum dharta rashtra'n swabandhavan. No more sandhi. Swajanam hi katham hatva sukhinah syama madhava. Sukhinah syama madhava. I think no more sandhi. So this is the Padacheda. Anvaya sounds like this. Atatainah etan hatva papameva asman ashraye. He Madhava, Tasmat Swabandhavan Dhartarashtran Antum Vayam Na Arhaha Hi Swajanam Hatva Katham Sukhinah Syama. Again, primarily, but there's a very interesting twist in this. We'll come to that. We'll see what kind of an impression it gives. The dictionary, when we click on the dictionary on the top, Atatainaha. Atatainaha is aggressors. Okay, aggressors, but we'll quickly come to another one. The Shanti Parva, Bhishmacharya explains this word very beautifully to Yudhishthira. We'll come to that very quickly. But Atatainaha etan, aggressors, these in Atatayonku, Hatva marke, Hatva, Hatya karke, Hatva, Papam eva, Pap hi, Pap indeed, sin indeed, Asman, Hame, for us, Ashraye. Okay. No, will hold, will take shelter in us. Papa will take shelter in us, right? Hey Madhava. I think we heard about the word Madhava very beautifully. There is Ma and there is Dhava. Okay. Madhava and also Madhu. Like so there are different interpretations. We heard that before. Hey Madhava, Tasmat. Therefore, okay. Here onward. Okay. Swabandhavan, our own people, our kinsmen. Dhartarashtram, the sons of Dhritarashtra. Hantum, okay, to kill. Okay, hatya karne ko. Vayam, we, hum. Na arhaha, na arhit hai. Like, we're not eligible. Not ought not. Like, he, indeed. Or for swajanam hatva. अपनी लोगों को हत्या करके स्वजन अपनी ही स्वजन को हत्या करके कथम कैसे हाउ सुखी न श्यामा have no sukh sukhi रह सकते हैं सुखी रहेंगे like how can we be happy okay how may we be happy so when you look at that in English so always this is where when we try to read it in any local Indian language see my Hindi is bad but I just made an attempt because that's the most popular Indian language but any Indian language the word by word dissection in a prose order will sound perfectly slotting into its position when we translate that into an Indian language. And this is where English may be a little funny and it might be a lot more fruitful if we end up studying any Indian scripture in our own mother tongue as much as possible. If not in Sanskrit, let's at least try to understand him in our own mother tongue. So there is a lot of fun. So what is he telling? He's like, by killing these Atatais, okay, now who's an Atatai? Atatai, the definition of an Atatai comes as Agnido, Garadaschaiva, Shatrapani Dhanapaha, Kshetradara Pahartacha, Shadaite Hi Atatainaha. Shadaite Hyatatainaha. So Agnido Garadaschaiva, Shastrapanir Dhanapaha, Kshetradara Pahartacha, Shadaite Hyatatainaha. So there is a definition that comes. What it means is Agnidaha, one who burns you, right? Garadaschaiva, one who poisons you also. Shastrapani, one who is holding a weapon in his hand and coming to attack you. Invariably, so winning a weapon in the hand is primarily threatening to kill you, right? Shastrapani, Dhanapaha, one who abducts your wealth. Kshetradara, one who takes away your land. Okay. Dara apahartacha. Kshetra and Dara apahartacha. One who takes away the land and your woman. Okay. The Shadaiti, these 6 people, he Atatainaha, are the Atatais, are the very extreme aggressors basically. These are the extremely horrible, sinners. Okay. Now look at this. Any one of them will qualify to be Atatai, right? Anyone, one who can poison you, one who can burn you, one who holds the weapon and runs towards killing you, and one who snatches your wealth away, one who takes away your land, and one who abducts your woman. These are the six. Any one of them, okay, any one of these qualities is qualifying to be an Atatai, right? But look at the Kauravas. Kauravas have done all of these. They have tried to burn these people alive. The Lakshagriha, there is a story, right? They have tried to burn them. Garadachaiva, they have tried to poison. Like, Bhimasena had to uh, save them, right? Garadachaiva, Shastrapani, they are obviously now the conches are blown. The Yuddha is happening, right? They are coming in front of the Pravritti Shastra Sampati. It's basically they are all holding the weapons. Okay, Dhanapaha, obviously they have snatched away the wealth. Okay, a lot of instances, right? Kshetra, okay, Kshetra Apaharta, like, they have snatched away the land also. Of course, these people, the entire war is happening because of that. And Dara Apaharta, twice, I think, during the Swayamvar, we all, not the Swayamvar, during the Dyuta Krida, right? We saw that, they tried to uh, insult Draupadi. But more importantly, I think Duryodhana, Karna, Jayadratha, these people tried to abduct Draupadi in the forest when they went in the Vanaparva, there is that episode. So they have done all six. These Kauravas, they have done all six. Okay, now the Kauravas are Atatais, but Arjuna is calling all of them as Atatai. Okay, this is the definition of an Atatai. Atatayanaha etam. These Atatai, okay, Hatva, inko maar ke, Papameva asman ashraye. Papa, only the biggest of the sins will only come to us. Okay, now how true this could be? Bhishmacharya also explains this to Yudhishthira. He says, Atatayana mayatam. Okay, atatayana mayatam hanya deva vicharayan. Like, whenever you find an atatayi, the only way to deal with them is kill them. That's the rule. The Vachana says that, whenever you see an atatayi, kill them. Okay. Na atatayi vadho dosho. Like, na atatayi, the one, the dosha that comes from killing a non-atatayi. Okay. Hantur bhavati kastana. Like, you will never acquire that sin. Okay. But what Arjuna is telling is, Papa meva ashraye rasman. So it's a very popular Vachana. Going by the Vachana, killing an Atatai is the only way to deal with them. But Arjuna has gone into the state of mind where he is telling that, by killing Atatai, Papa will only come to us. Okay, and that too, not a very common Atatai. These are the people who have committed all six possible crimes of an Atatai by the definition. So that's the beauty, right? Entire, now Arjuna's sense of proportion is also going to toss, and Arjuna's sense of morality is also gone for toss. Like, two things that are happening. Okay, hey Madhava, Tasmat, Swabandhavan Bhartarashtravan. Okay, our own Bhartarashtra son. Okay, Vayamna Arhaha. He, like, Hantumna Arhaha. Like, we don't deserve, we are not eligible. Arhata, right? Arha. So we are not eligible to kill them now. Therefore, okay, Ho Janardana. Okay, Ho Madhava. Like, Swajanam Hyatva, Katham Sukinaha Syama. How can we be happy by killing our own people? See, the entire sense of proportion, the sense of morality is completely gone to toss. Let us see what Aurobindo translation for this uh, shloka says. Sin will take hold of us in slaying them, though they are the aggressors, they are the Atatais. So it is not fit that we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, our own kinsmen. Indeed, how may we be happy, O Madhava, killing our own people? Quite decent translation. But only thing you see, this website has such accurate translation. When we read them in English, sometimes the sentencing, will take a while to grasp in terms of the spoken English, right? So, but very good translation. It's a very decent website. I think we should look for more and more. When you click on analysis, when you click on highlight, download their app. They can also send you a shloka a day and things like that. Though I am not a big fan of shloka a day. Shloka a day is very, very powerful. We'll click next now. We'll move on to shloka number 37. Okay, so we are done with that. So listen. यद्यप्येतेन पश्यन्ति लोभोपहत चेतसः कुलक्षय कृतं दोषं मित्रद्रोहे च पातकम्. So this is the shloka number 37 according to this website. The Padacheda says Yadi api yadyapi. Ya becomes Yadi api yadyapi. It's called the Yanasandhi. Iko Yanachi, there is a sutra, but you will see do a very quick crash course on some of these basics of grammar. Okay, yadi, api, yadyapi, api, ete, apyete. Similarly, yadyapyete, yadi, api, yadyapi, api, ete, apyete. This are all swara sandhis. When you repeat the same letters multiple times, you will see that natural transformation happening. Like, yadi, ya, e, a, e, ya, e, ya, e, ya, e, ya, e, ya. E and a naturally becomes ya. And e and ye naturally becomes ye, ya, ye, 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 ye. Right? So you will see this. These are all natural sandhis. Yadi, api, yadyapi, api, ete, apyete, na pashyanti, lobha upahata, lobhopahata. Lobha upahata chetasaha. Kulakshaya, that's another sandhi. Lobha upahata, lobhopahata. Kulakshaya kritam dosham, mitradrohe cha patakam. That's the padacheda. Very simple. Three sandhis. And Anvaya. Anvaya sounds like this. Yadi api lobha upahata chetasaha ete kulakshaya kritam dosham mitradrohe patakam cha na pashyanti. I think this is one part of it. It will get completed in the next sloka, perhaps. You will see what it means. Now, first of all, we should see that, Arjuna's state of mind. He was filled with Rajoguna. Then he got into too much of confidence. He wanted to break the line and go in the front. Then Kripaya Parayavishtu, extreme compassion got filled in his heart. That's the next thing. Now let us see what kind of a mood, is kind of seen in Arjuna. Hey Janardana, hey, this is being referred to the same guy, right? Krishna. So Arjuna is telling, hey Janardana, oh Janardana, yadi api, even yadyapi means, agar, like, yadyapi is a very common word. I think we use the same thing in many of the Indian languages. Yadyapi, we use that in Kannada. I think we use that in Hindi as well. Very Shuddha Hindi, we say that. What if? Like, yadyapi, although, like, what if? Yadyapi, even though, lobha upahata chetasaha. Okay, lobha is greed. Upahata means having been driven or being abducted by. Upahata chetasaha. Chetasaha means chitta, like, chetana, like, the intellect, or the consciousness. Okay, so even if the consciousness, or greed, abducted consciousness. Okay, ete of these. Okay, ete means these, which these means Dhritarashtra's sons. So basically, he's telling these Dhritarashtra's sons are they have lost their consciousness. They have lost their chetasa because of the greed. The greed has abducted their chetasa. That's what it means. Lobha upahata. Upahata is apahrita, like, clouded with upahata. Chetasaha. Kulakshaya kritam. The krita, the work, which is kulakshaya, which is kshayakara for the kula, which is destructive for the entire family, the entire clan. So resulting from the destruction of the family, or resulting in the destruction of the family, not from, I think we can say in, this resulting in the destruction of the family. Kulakshaya kritam, dosham. Dosham means the fault lines, or the guilt, or the sins. Like, here they say guilt. Mitra drohe. Okay, mitra drohe means in the mitra droha, in the hostility to the friends. Patakam. Patakam is abysmal fall, right? Patakam is the fall or the crime. Okay, cha na pashyanti, even if they don't see. Na dekh sakte hain. So we will see what kind of an impression it gives. So basically, it's only one half. Basically, now he's taking a moral high standing, the way it appears, right? So let's see what the Aurobindo translation says. The shloka is Yadyapyete na pashyanti lobho pahata chetasaha kulakshaya kritam dosham mitradrohe cha patakam. So the Aurobindo interpretation is, although these, with a consciousness clouded with greed, lobho pahata chetasaha, see no guilt in the destruction of the family, right? No crime in hostility to friends. Dot dot dot. Okay, the meaning will be concluded in the next sloka, right? So even if they don't see, these are lesser mortals. They are unable to see the guilt. They are unable to see the patakam, the extreme abysmal fall of coming from destruction of the family, and deceit to the friends. So there are friends and family, right? This is a family war. So Arjuna is getting into that mood. Sloka number 38. We'll click on next and go on to what he says. Dot dot dot. Right? That's where we ended the previous one. So it continues. Katham na jeyamasmabhihi papadasman nivartitum kulakshaya kritam dosham prapashyadbhir janardana. So katham na jeyamasmabhihi पापादस्मान् निवर्तितुं कुलक्षय कृतं दोषं प्रपश्यद्भिर्जनार्दन. So the Padacheda, when we come below, as Katham na Jneyam Asmabhihi Papat Asman becomes Papadasman Nivartitum Kulakshaya Kritam Dosham Prapashyadbihi Janardana. Okay, so Anvaya, when you come up above the Padacheda, we have the Anvaya. Hey Janardana, Kulakshaya Kritam Dosham Prapashyadbihi Asmabhihi Asmat Papat Nivartitum Katham na Jneyam. He's asking now question. Let's see what kind of a question it is. When we click on the dictionary, hey Janardana, oh Janardana, we used that Janardana already, I think, in the previous sloka. No, Kulakshaya Kritam. Okay, the destruction, the act which is resulting to the Kulakshaya, to the destruction of the family, resulting to the destruction of the family. Okay, so from the destruction of the family, dosha, the evilness or the papa, the dosha, the fault of destruction, the faults coming from the destruction of the family, prapashadbihi asmabihi. Even after looking at this, okay, prapashadbihi, we are able to see them, asmabihi, okay, by us, we are able to see that, right? We are able to prapashadbihi even after having seen asmabihi by us. Okay, that's the way we can literally look at them. Prapashadbihi asmabihi, having seen by us. Asmat papa, by this papa, from such a sin, okay, from this papa, nivartitum, okay, to draw back or to escape out, nivartitum. Katham na jneyam, how can we not know? Kaise na jaan payenge? How can we not know? No? How, we have the wisdom. The jneyam is we have the wisdom. Katham na, why should we not have the wisdom? So basically, he's taking the moral ground. These guys who are logopahata chetataha, okay, they are unable to see, even if they are unable to see the papa coming out of kulakshaya krita dosha and the mitra droha and the fall, the patakam, how can we not see that? How can we not see the faults coming from the kulakshaya krita dosha? So basically, taking the moral high ground. They are the idiots, but we are at least the intelligent people. We should be able to see. Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says. The shloka is Katham na jeyamasmabhi papadasman nivartitum kulakshaya kritam dosham prapashyadhir janardana. So interpretation says dot. Why should not we have the wisdom to draw back from such a sin, O Janardana? We who see the evil in the destruction of the family, in the annihilation of the family, the eternal traditions of the family are destroyed. In the collapse of traditions, lawlessness overcomes the whole family. I think basically the interpretation has little jumped the line. Maybe some of it is going to come in the next shloka. But nonetheless, okay. So basically, he's expressing a little more higher moral ground. So even in the Vishada, he somehow has a virtue signaling attitude. Okay, how can we not do this? Okay, let us see the next shloka. Shloka number 39. कुलक्षये प्रणश्यन्ति कुलधर्माः सनातनाः धर्मे नष्टे कुलं कृत्स्नम् अधर्मोऽभिभवत्युत. The Padacheda goes like this. Kulakshaye pranashyanti kuladharmaah sanatanaah dharme nashte kulam kritsnam adharmah abhibhavati uta. Adharmah abhibhavati adharmo bhibhavati. So there is a visarga that becomes guna. Adharmah aha becomes o. Adharmo abhibhavati and adharmo abhibhavati becomes adharmo bhibhavati. The a in abhibhavati goes hiding with a s kind of a mark. Okay, it is not explicitly pronounced. Adharmo bhibhavati. Abhibhavati uta abhibhavatyuta. There is another sandhi. So there are two sandhis in this shloka. Let us see how the anvaya sounds. Kulakshaye sanatanaah kuladharmaah pranashyanti. Uta dharme nashte kritsnam kulam adharmah adhibhavati. Okay, so very nice. Now he goes logical after taking the slightly moral high ground, after getting into the virtue signaling mode. Now he's getting into a little more logical according to his own ways. Okay, so let's click on the dictionary. Kulakshaye sanatanaah kuladharmaah pranashyanti. In the kulakshaye, in the destruction of the family. or in the annihilation of the family. Sanatanaha kuladharmaha, the eternal kuladharmas, okay, the traditions of the family. Pranashyanti, nasha, okay. Nashyanti is basically nasha, they will be destroyed. Pranashyanti is a little more pra, whenever we add pra, we can see pranashyanti, they are completely destroyed. They will go out of sight, or they will be subjugated to humility also. They will subjugated to humiliation also, right? So pranashyanti, because pra, whenever we see the pra, it is the prakarshana. There's a lot of light around it, right? So the light is completely destroyed, or it will be pushed into the darkness, something like that. We can somehow see the idiomatic meaning to come that way. So Nasha, see again, Nasha can be multiple different ways. We will see a little more description of Nasha when we come to the second chapter. Okay. But Pranashyanti, whenever it's Nashyanti, which is Nasha, they will get Nasha. Okay. But Pra, there's a little flavor to it. Okay. These Upasargas are quite fun. Sometimes they are good for contemplation. Uta, and dharme naste, in the loss of the dharma, in the nashta of the dharma, in the collapse of the tradition, like Krishnam, the entire Krishnam is a very popular word. We keep hearing that. Okay, Krishnam kulam, the entire family. Adharmaha abhibhavati, lawlessness. Adharmaha abhibhavati. Abhibhavati means abhi again is a upasarga, right? Abhi, very nicely. Bhavati becomes or overcomes, beset. So basically, he's telling now, the minute the family gets destroyed, see, this is an inflection point. This is Kurukshetra, right? This is the ultimate war, where it is guaranteed that there is a lot of collateral damage. Like, that is kind of seen, that is kind of accepted. It is given, and then this guy is foreseeing. Uh, the good thing about Arjuna's analysis is that he is able to little bit accurately predict the future. So he's telling Kulakshaya is confirmed. The kind of a thing that we are about to get into now is kind of make a lot of heads roll. I mean, in the modern context, that's what we say, right? Heads roll. A lot of collateral damage will occur, and in that collateral damage, all the Sanatana Kuladharma, very ancient, very age-old family traditions will get completely destroyed. Okay, so let's see what the Aurobindo interpretation says. Kulakshaye pranashyanti, kuladharma sanatanaha, dharme naste kulam kritsnam, adharmo bhavatyuta. See, there is one more thing that we need to notice here. Between the previous shloka and the current shloka, there is a adyanta, antadi kind of a chain. So, kulakshaya is where we ended the previous shloka, right? Kulakshaya kritam dosham prapashyadbhir janardana, right? That is where we ended. So the last line of the previous shloka ended with Kulakshaya. Now he is beginning with Kulakshaya. So there is a very logical chain. He's threading them very nicely. This one he says Kulakshaye pranashyanti. In the Kulakshaya, uh, the loss will happen for all the Kuladharma Sanatana, for all the Sanatana Kuladharma. And dharme naste kulam krishnam adharmo vibhotsa. By the entire destruction of the family, only adharma will get set in, right? So let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says. In the annihilation of the family, the eternal traditions of the family are destroyed. In the collapse of the traditions, lawlessness overcomes the entire family. Okay. So this is very interesting, very logical. Adharma bhibhavatkita, right? So let's look at shloka number 40. Again Antadi, right? Where it ends, the previous shloka ends, that is where he picks up the next shloka, which is basically the significance of it's signifying that he is going in a very logical train of thought. Though that logic is seated in illogic, that's another thing. But the construction, the way he's building his argument, is going in a very, very methodical fashion. Shloka number 40 reads like this. अधर्माधिभवात् कृष्ण प्रदुष्यन्ति कुलस्त्रियः स्त्रीषु दुष्टासु वार्ष्णेय jayate varna sankaraha. So the Padacheda sounds like this. Adharma abhibhavat, adharmabhibhavat. Krishna pradushyanti kulastriyaha. Strishu dushtasu varsneya jayate varna sankaraha. So the Anvaya sounds like this. Hey Krishna, adharma abhibhavat kulastriyaha pradushyanti. Hey Varsneya, Strishu dushtasu varna sankaraha jayate. Okay, so I think it's very beautiful in the way he is explaining this to Krishna. Hey Krishna, So we heard the word Krishna, right? Karshayati, the one who is very attractive. Hey Krishna, Adharma Abhibhavat, owing to the predominance of lawlessness, Adharma Abhibhavat, extreme happening of Adharma, Kulastriya Pradushyanti, the women of the Kula, the women of the family, will become polluted. Pradushan, right? Pradushan is pollution. You know, Pradushyanti will become corrupt, will get polluted. Hey Varsneya. Varsneya is the Vrishni Vamsha, right? So Krishna belongs to the Yadava Vamsha, the Vrishni Vamsha. Hey Varsneya, Strishu Dushtasu. Okay, by the corruption of in the corruption of the women. Strishu is a Saptami Vibhakti. It's locative, right? Strishu, in the women of corrupt, like, in the corruption of the women. Strishu Dushtasu, Varna Sankaraha Jayati. Varna Sankaraha is basically the intermixture of the Varna, confusion of the Varnas, the fourfold order of the society. That's one interpretation. But basically, the Varnas go here and there. Basically, in current context, we can say the bastardization. Okay, the minute women become corrupt, so women will go helter skelter. Many abductions will happen and things. So a lot of bastardization will happen, or the intermixture of the castes, intermixture of the Varnas. Okay, that will take place. Okay, some impurity in the Varnas that will take place. Okay, Jayati will arise. Right? So that is sloka number 40. Let us see what the interpretation of Sri Aurobindo says. Adharma bhibhavat Krishna pradushyanti kulastriyah strishu dushtasu varsneya jayate varna sankaraha. When we come to the Aurobindo interpretation, it says, owing to the predominance of lawlessness, O Krishna, the women of the family become corrupt. And women corrupted, O Varsneya, the confusion of the Varnas arise. Right? Very, very logical. Okay, Varna Sankara. Now let's see sloka number 40. It should begin with Varna Sankara. Okay, he says, Sankaro narakayaiva kulagnanam kulasya cha patanti pitaro hyesham lupta pindodaka kriyaha. So he says Sankaro. The Padacheda says Sankaraha narakaya eva. Sankaraha narakaya. Sankaro narakaya. So Visarga aha becomes O guna. Sankaro narakaya. Narakaya eva narakaya eva. There is another sandhi. Ruddhi sandhi. Like eka 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 eka. Keep repeating this example. So Sankaraha narakaya eva kulagnanam kulasya cha. Patanti pitaraha hi. Pitaraha hi pitarohi. So Visarga again becomes O Karaguna. He esham he esham. He a he. E and A becomes ya. He esham he esham. Lupta pinda udaka kriyaha. Pinda udaka pindodaka. Right? So this is the Anvaya. Then we'll see the Anvaya. Sankaraha kulagnanam kulasya cha narakaya eva. Lupta pinda udaka kriyaha. Esham pitaraha hi patanti. So what kind of a meaning it draws? Let's click on the dictionary. Sankaraha, this confusion, the Varna Sankara. It ended with Varna Sankara, right? So in sloka number 40. So this Varna Sankaraha, Kulagnanam, of the ruiners of the family, of the ruiners of the people who destroyed the family, of destroyed the Kula. Kulasya, and also of the Kula. Okay, both of the people who destroyed the family as well as of that family which got destroyed. Okay, Sankaraha, and this confusion, cha, Narakaya eva, for hell alone, or for hell surely. Okay, Naraka eva. Lupta pinda udaka kriyaha. Okay, Lupta means Lupta, gone, like, missing. Pinda udaka kriyaha. These are all the Pitru kriyas that we perform, right? Prayashita kriyas that we do for the Pitrus, things like that. Lupta Pinda Udaka Kriya, all the Pitru Tarpana that we do, right? Pinda Tarpana, Udaka Tarpana for the Pitru Kriya, all the activities. Deprived of the Pitru Loka, rice offering. Okay, and the water. Esham Pitaraha Hi Patanti. Their ancestors, he alone, okay, for Patanti will fall. So basically, the Varna Sankara will definitely, bring hell to both Naraka, to both the family as well as the people who destroyed the family, because their pitara, udaka kriya, pinda udaka kriya will definitely follow. So that's the kind of a thing. Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says. Okay, Sankaro Narakayaiva Kulagnanam Kulasya cha Patanti Pitaro Hyesham Lukta Pindodaka Kriyaha. The Aurobind interpretation says this confusion, the Varna Sankara, leads to hell both to the ruiners of the family and the family. For their ancestors fall deprived of the Pinda and the libation, the Udaka Kriya, Pinda and Udaka Kriya. Okay, the entire ancestor will fall. Basically, we keep doing those Pinda Udaka Kriya to keep them uplifted for all the prayashita, right? So, Lupta Pindodaka Kriya. Okay, now let's see Shloka number 42. Shloka number 42 says, दोषैरेतैः कुलघ्नानां वर्णसङ्करकारकैः उत्साद्यन्ते जातिधर्माः कुलधर्माश्च शाश्वताः. Let's see what the Padacheda says. Padacheda says, Doshaihi etaihi, doshair etaihi, doshair etaihi. So, aihi, the Visarga becomes Rekha. There's a Visarga Sandhi. Doshaihi etaihi, doshair etaihi, Kulagnanam, Varna Sankara Karakaihi, Utsadyante, Jati Dharmaha, Kuladharmaha cha, Kuladharmascha. So, here Visarga aha becomes Sha. Kuladharmaha cha, Kuladharmascha. Like Ramaha cha, Ramacha. Right? The first few slokas we saw that Bhavan Bhishmascha, Karnascha, Kripascha, like Kripahacha, Kripascha. Kuladharmaha cha, Kuladharmascha, Shashvataha. Okay, 2, 3 sandhis here. Let's see how the Anvaya sounds. Anvaya sounds like this. Varna Sankara Karakaihi, Etaihi, Doshaihi, Kulagnanam, Shashvataha, Jati Dharmaha, Kuladharmaha cha, Utsadyante. Very nicely, he's drawing some distinction. Let us see what the dictionary helps us with. The dictionary says, Varna Sankara Karakaihi. By the confusion of the order, which is the Varna Sankara, of the Varna order. By the confusion in the orders, or by the Varna Sankara, Etaihi, by these, Doshaihi, of the dosha, Kulagnana, of the people who destroyed the family. Okay, so by the dosha of this Kulagnana and their act of Varna Sankara, Shashvata, all the eternal, Jati Dharma, all the Jati Dharmas, and Kula Dharma and the Kula Dharmas also, Utsadyante, will get destroyed. Right? So there is a very nice distinction being drawn between Jati Dharma and Kula Dharma. Today, unfortunately, in the society, both are understood to be caste. I think there is some distinction. These two are two different things. Okay, Jati is basically Janmana Jayati, right? Whatever is by birth is Jati Dharma. So we all possess something called the Swabhava. That's the only thing that we can look at. And Kula Dharma is the ancestral practice. Like, for example, Arjuna. Arjuna is born in the Kuru family. So the Kuru family, based on their ancestry, they have their own Kula Dharma. And by Jati, by his own birth, he has certain skills. We will see that later this entire family, this entire Kuru dynasty, uh, the later kings of this family are born from Arjuna's progeny, like Parikshit, Janamejaya, okay, all of these. So there is something to do with their swabhava, their jati dharma. So based on their birth, people possess certain swabhava, right? We will see more about. But nonetheless, here in this shloka, there is a distinction being drawn between jati dharma and the kula dharma. Very nicely. Shloka, when we do look at the Aurobind interpretation, the shloka is Doshay Retehi Kulagnanam Varna Sankara Karakaihi Utsadyante Jati Dharma Kula Dharmascha Shashvataha. The Aurobind interpretation says, by these misdeeds of the ruiners of the family, leading to the confusion of the order, the eternal laws of the race and the moral law of the family are destroyed. I think this is some interpretation. But basically, the eternal dharma, the jati dharma, and the kula dharma will be destroyed by the misdeeds of the ruiners of the family that leads us into the Varna Sankara. Right? That's the meaning. Shloka number 42. Let's quickly see what shloka number 43 says. Okay. It says, Utsanna kula dharmanam manushyanam janardana narake niyatam vaso bhavati tyanushruma. The Padacheda goes like this. Utsanna kula dharmanam manushyanam janardana narake aniyatam, narake niyatam, narake aniyatam vasaha bhavati iti bhavati iti anushushruma ityanushushruma. There are a few sandhis, right? I hope you could follow them. Anvaya says, Hey Janardana, Utsanna kula dharmanam manushyanam narake niyatam vasaha bhavati iti anushushruma. He's now giving Gyan to Krishna, right? So very nice. When you click on the dictionary, you will see, Hey Janardana, oh Janardana. We are all talking about destruction, right? So this name is very apt. Janana Martais. Like, he is the one who destroys the people. Utsanna kula dharmana, of the families whose morals are corrupted, whose dharma is utsak, completely gone, like, will be destroyed, uplifted, uprooted. Utsanna is basically uprooted the morals of the family, dharma of the family. Manushyana, of such people. Niyatam, like, always, forever. Like, niyatam is niyata is always, forever. Narake vasaha bhavati. In hell only their vasa, nivasa, like, their abode will be assured. Iti anushushruma, such we have heard. See, there are certain dharma shastras. They they talk about, what is the impact of the lukta, pindodaka kriya. If udaka kriya, the pinda kriya does not happen, like they say, prashitam akurvana papeshu nirata janaha. So we keep, when we don't perform uh, the the prashita karya, which is the pinda kriya, udaka kriya, or all the pitri karya. Okay, so prayaschitam papeshu nirata janaha apaschattapino kastan narakan yanti darunam. So, when we don't perform the proper udaka kriya, some of the dharma shastras do say that, okay, that, they will be relegated to the hell. But I think it's a very important distinction to draw here, because Arjuna is quoting text. Arjuna is quoting that, thus we have heard. Like, there are scriptures that tell us that people who miss their udaka kriya for their pitrus, their entire family clan will be relegated to the hell, relegated to Naraka. Right? That is the kind of a message that we get. Let us see what kind of an impression we get by reading the Aurobindo interpretation. So, Utsanna kula dharmanam manushyanam o janardana narake niyatam vasaha iti bhavati tyanushushruma. So the Aurobindo interpretation says, and men whose family morals are corrupted, O Janardana, they live forever in hell, thus have been heard. I think in the brackets in the Shastra, because he's quoting. Heard, Shruti is always whatever is Shrotriya tradition, right? Whatever we hear is basically coming from the scripture. Shloka number 44. Shloka number 44 says, Aho batamahat papam kartum vyavasita vayam yadrajya sukhalobhena hantum swajana mudyataha. Very beautiful. I think this one doesn't go to 47 shloka. This will close in 46, maybe 46 shlokas. There are only two more shlokas. I think we reduce one shloka by the virtue of making couple of shlokas three liners. Like, instead of two lines, we made them three liners. Okay? But nonetheless, in some of the versions of Bhagavad-Gita, you will see the chapter 1 has 47 shlokas. In this, I think we will close with 46. Okay, so this is shloka number 44 according to the website that we refer to. Aho bata mahat papam kartum vyavasita vayam yadrajya sukhadubhena hantum swajana mudyataha. The padacheda, when we come below, scroll down a little. Aho bata mahat papam kartum vyavasita vayam. Yat rajya becomes yadrajya. So ta becomes the. Yat rajya yadrajya sukhadobhena hantum swajanam udyata. I think there is only one sandhi. Let us see how the jumbling of these words in the Anvaya sounds, in the prose order sounds. The Anvaya says, Aho, Bata, Mahat Papam, Kartum, Vayam Yavasitaha, Yat Rajya Sukhadopena, Swajanam Eva Hantum Udyataha. Right? When we click on the dictionary, we will see how this translates into the meaning. Like, dictionary. Aho Bata, like, alas, like, very grave, nimittani pashyami, right? So, viparitani, nimittani pashyami. So he sees a lot of bad, ominous signs, right? Aho bata, alas, vayam, we, Okay, all of us. Mahat papam, the great sin, kartum, to commit. Okay, vyavasitaha are engaged, right? Yet that which, rajya sukhalobhena, okay, the greed of rajya and the sukha, the kingdom and the pleasures therein, through the greed of pleasures of kingship. Swajanam, our own people, Hantum, to kill, Udyataha, we have gone up, we are endeavoring. Ut is always a very Utsanna, Udyataha. Ut is basically Uttishta, get up. Ut is very progressive. Okay, Udyataha, we have gone marching forward. We are endeavoring, okay, forward endeavoring. Right? So, you will see what the Aurobindo interpretation says. Sri Aurobindo. Aho bata mahat papam kartum vyavasita vayam yadrajya sukhalubhena hantum swajana mudyataha. Okay, the interpretation says, alas, we are engaged in committing a great sin. We who were endeavoring to kill our own people through the greed of the pleasures of the kingship. So now his virtue signaling has gone so far that he is calling himself a sinner, right? So very nice. You will see what shloka number 45 according to this website says. Yadi mam apratikaram ashastram shastrapanayah dhartarashtrarane hanyustanme kshemataram bhave. So padacheda goes like this. Yadi mam apratikaram ashastram shastrapanayah dhartarashtraha rane dhartarashtrarane. So aha, the visarga goes missing. It's a lopa, visarga sandhi. Rane hanyuhu tat hanyustat. So visarga becomes hanyuhu tat hanyustat. Tat me becomes tan me. Right? Tat me tan me. So tat ta becomes na. Tat me tan me. Anunasika sandhi. Tat me kshemataram bhave. This is the padacheda. Let's see how the anvaya sounds. Yadi apratikaram ashastram mam shastrapanayah bhartarashtraha rane hanyuh tat me kshemataram bhave. Arjuna's Vishada takes another term, right? When we click on the dictionary, he says, Yadi, if, if, what if, Yadi, if, Yadi. In Hindi also, I think we use the word Yadi. Apratikaram, unresisting, na pratikaram, without any pratikara, without any response, unresponsive, unresisting. Apratikaram, ashastram, unarmed, mam, me. So I am, now he doesn't have any mood to fight, and his Gandiva has dropped, right? Slipped off his hand. So without any weapon in the hand, and without any desire to resist, without any desire to react if somebody comes marching forward. Shastrapanayah, people who have arms in their hand, people who are armed, completely armed. Dhartarashtra, the sons of Dhritarashtra and their army. Okay, Rane, in this battlefield, in this battle. Okay, Hanyuhu, they slay me. Tat, okay, that may to me, okay, Kshemataram is better. Okay, it's Kshemataram. It gives me Kshema. Bhavet would be. See, in this moment of disarmed state of mind, unreacting mood of mind, if these people with a weapon in their hand come to me and kill me, that I think is better for me. That's the kind of a mood that Arjuna has gone into. Click on the shloka again and come to the Aurobindo interpretation. Yadi mam pratikar ashastram shastrapanayah dhartarashtrarane hanyustanme kshemataram bhavet. Okay, the Aurobindo interpretation says, it is more for my welfare that the sons of Dhritarashtra, armed in their hand, should slay me, who is in a state of unarmed and unresisting state, that I will not fight. See, a couple of things to note here. I think it also lays down the Dharma Kshetriya part that we started off this chapter with, right? Dharma Kshetriya. It is all bound in Dharma. And I think there is a Yuddha Dharma at that time that if somebody who's unarmed, he will not be attacked. That is the Yuddha Dharma that we all think of. But he says, now, if in this unarmed state of mind, if somebody performs an adharmic act, which is come and slay me, because war has started, the conches have been blown. So technically, at this time, the weapons can be exchanged. The fires can be exchanged, the shots can be exchanged, right? So that is happening. The conches were already blown. We saw that all the conches being blown. Tumulo Vyanunadayan, sloka number 13. So 13 and sloka number 19, they signify that it's already kind of noisy. The battlefield has already gotten noisy. That's the kind of a thing that we see. So this guy is telling now, okay, now in this unarmed state of mind, unresisting mood of mind, if the armed sons of Dhritarashtra come and kill me, I think that will be Kshematara for me. That is better for me. Okay? We will see the last sloka of the first chapter, sloka number 46 according to this website. But this sloka in most other translate or versions will be called sloka number 47. Sanjaya Uvacha एवमुक्त्वार्जुनः सङ्ख्ये रथोपस्थ उपाविशत् विसृज्य सशरं चापं शोकसंविघ्नमानसः. So the Padacheda goes like this. Sanjaya Uvacha becomes Sanjaya Uvacha. Aha, the Visarga goes missing in that. Lopa. Evam Uktva Arjunaha. Evam Uktva Arjunaha. There is one Sandhi. Uktva Arjunaha. Uktva Arjunaha. Savarna Dirgha. Arjunaha Sankhye Ratha Upastha. Ratha Upasthe. Ratha Upaste. Rathopasthe. Rathopasthe Upavishat. Rathopastha Upavishat. So Ratha Upastha becomes Rathopastha. That's the Guna Sandhi. Upasthe Upavishat. Upastha Upavishat. Visrajya Sasharam Chapam Shoka Samvigna Manasaha. No more Sandhis. The Anvaya sounds like this. Sanjaya Uvacha. Sankhye Shoka Samvigna Manasaha. Arjunaha Evam Uktva Sasharam Chapam Visrajya Rathopasthe Upavishat. Okay, let's see what kind of a meaning we can draw when we click on the dictionary. Sankhya. Sankhya is basically number, but the battlefield is always enumerated. It's not just another random number of people. So in the battlefield, and the battlefield is always enumerated. The various vyuhas, each vyuha will have a certain number. So in this chapter, we will see that for army, for the battlefield, for the battle line, we use 4 different terms. We saw the word anikam being used, where there is a specific number attached to anikam, which is 1/10 of a akshohini. Chamu being used, which is 1/3 of an anikam, right? 1/3 of 1/10 of an akshohini. Chamu. Then we saw Sena being used. That itself is the army line. And then now we are seeing Sankhya. It's all enumerated because it's all enumerated. I mean, people, we should understand that, perhaps gives us an indication that people in those days were highly, highly objective driven. They were very, very measured and they were very, very, like, even in our culture, even to this date, we have borrowed those cultural aspects. We don't say guna, we say triguna. It becomes very, very natural. Triloka, it's very, very common thing. Chaturveda, it's a very common term. For everything, we tend to attach a number. Arishadvarga, Shadrasa, the taste, different tastes are 6 in nature. Panchabhuta, Panchavayu, Panchakosha, for everything, Saptadhatu. For everything, we tend to attach a number. Dwadasha Rudra, Dwadasha Aditya, Ekadasha Rudra. We keep attaching numbers. Dasha Mahaditya, for everything, Navagraha, Navadwara, Ashtachakra, for everything we tend to attach one number. It's a cultural thing. Sankhya is a very enumerated. That's why it's the derivative of the Sankhya. So Sankhya is the battlefield. That's the reason. The battle. Shoka Samvigna Manasaha. So in Shoka Samvigna Manasaha, the spirit overwhelmed with sorrow. Samvigna Manasaha. Arjuna, this Arjuna. Evam Uktva, thus having spoken. Sasharam Chapam, along with the arrows, the bow also. Visrajya, casting down. Okay, having Visarjan karke, dropping them. Ratha Upasthe Upavishat. On the seat of the chariot, he sank down or sat down. That is the close of the first chapter, the way we understand the Bhagavad-Gita. The Aurobindo interpretation says, Sanjaya Uvacha, Eva Muktvarjuna Sankhye, Rathopastha Upavishat, Visrajya Sasharam Chapam, Shoka Samvigna Manasaha. Aurobindo interpretation, when we scroll down a little bit on the website, says, Sanjaya said, having thus spoken on the battlefield, Arjuna sank down on the seat of the chariot, casting down the divine bow, Gandiva, and the inexhaustible quiver, given to him by the gods. Sasharam, all the arrows, his spirit overwhelmed with sorrow. Shoka samvigna manasa. So the grief has been underlined in this, right? When we click on the next sloka comes in the next chapter. So we'll have to come to the chapter and click on chapter 2, and then we have to look at sloka number 1. That is the one. Now, the reason I want to do that is, please note, it is a continuation of Sanjaya's verse. Sanjaya is not speaking anything new. And this he continues. He had the last word in the chapter 1. So the same Sanjaya continues. The Sanjaya, I'll quickly share that in the thing. 1 second. In the screen, perhaps I will share the same thing. Edit, pinned link. I will change it to 2/1. Let me see if that changes. Okay. So I have given the fresh link. Now we are in the second chapter officially. But yeah, it's a continued statement from Sanjaya. So Sanjaya Uvacha. Tam tatha kripaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam vishidam tamidam vakyam uvacha madhusudanaha. So the Padacheta, the second chapter, first sloka we are in. I've just updated the web link. Padacheta says Sanjaya Uvacha, same thing, Sanjaya Uvacha. And please note, it's the same Sanjaya who continues to speak, from the first chapter to the second chapter. Somewhere, someone has given the yati, the chapter break, and said, okay, that is first chapter, this is second chapter. But it's a continued conversation, right? So Sanjaya Uvacha, Tam Tatha Kripaya Avishtam Kripaya Vishtam. So there is a Savarna Dirgha Sandhi. Ashru Purna Akule. Akula Ikshanam. Ashru Purna Akula Purnakula. Purnakula Ikshanam Purnakule Ikshanam. Right? There are a couple of sandhis, Savarna Dirgha and Guna. Vishidantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha. No more sandhis. There are 3 sandhis in the first line, no more sandhis thereafter. So Anvaya says Sanjaya Uvacha Tatha Kripaya Avishtam Ashrupurna Kulekshanam Ashrupurna Akula Ikshanam Vishidantam Tam Madhusudanaha Idam Vakyam Uvacha. Very beautiful, I think very nice message here. Let's see what kind of a meaning we can draw when we click on dictionary. Tatha, which is Sanjaya Uvacha, right? Sanjaya is telling Tatha, thereafter. Okay, thus. Kripaya Avishtam, invaded. Avishtam means filled with, or, invaded by pity. Kripaya, lot of compassion, pity, right? Kripaya. That is the, so sloka number 27, 28 also says the same thing. Okay, Kripaya Parayavishto. Okay, multiple places we saw that, Kripaya Parayavishto. Right? Ashru Purna Akula Ikshanam. Ashru, okay, Purna, eyes filled with tears. Akula, okay, distress. Ikshanam, okay, this moment, right? Ashru Purna Kule. So the eyes full of distress with tears, right? Vishidantam, this person who is Vishida. So Shoka Samvigna Manasa. So Vishidantam, the person who is overcome by the depression and the discouragement, right? So we have to understand that it is kind of a adjective being used for a person. Vishidantam, this crybaby, so to say. I mean, in a more direct way, we can say this crybaby. Okay, so Arjuna is not referred to by his name here, right? So Arjuna has been called as Vishidantam, that, okay, him, that Vishidantam, that crybaby. Madhusudanaha, this Madhusudane, idam vakyam, is vakyuko, or these words, uvacha, spoke, bola, So beautifully, Sanjay is now explaining Arjuna as a crybaby. See, in management, we always hear this, right? In today's context, that you are as good as your last performance. Like even Virat Kohli, he is as good as his last innings. Like when he continues to flop in his batting, we say he is as good as his last innings. So he is now a loser. Like when people tend to say that. So now Arjuna, who was called as the Pandava, okay, Dhananjaya, multiple things, right? Mahabahu, all of these great names that we use for Gudakesha, all of these great words that we use for Arjuna. Now suddenly he's become Vishidantam. Okay, that crying guy. Okay, Tam Vishidantam Tam. Okay, so Tatha कृपया आविष्टम अश्रुपूर्णा कुलेक्षणम विशीदंतम तम Arjunam. In bracket, we should say Arjunam. Okay. Madhusudanaha idam vakyam uvacha. Okay, so when we look at the Aurobindo interpretation, it says Sanjaya says, tam tata kripaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam vishidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudanaha. The interpretation says Sanjaya says, thus invaded by the pity, eyes full of distress and the tears, his heart overcome by depression and discouragement, Madhusudana, which is Sri Krishna, spoke these words to that guy who is Vishidantam, who is crying. Okay, so that is the description of Arjuna. Okay, so Arjuna now is completely crying. He is fallen into the chariot, given up all his bow and the arrow, with completely eyes swelled up with tears. Okay, to that such a person, now Krishna says something. Okay, that is what it says. Now, in between these two, we also get to hear that, whenever we complete chapter number 1, we see something like, it is Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, which means thus in the Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, in the rich Bhagavad-Gita, okay, Upanishatsu. It is also called as Upanishad. I think one of the reasons why it is called the Upanishad is because Mahabharata is often referred to as the Panchama Veda, and Upanishads are often referred to as the Vedasara. They are the quintessential summary of the Vedas, right? In terms of giving the philosophical meaning, they are the Vedasaras. Now, Bhagavad Gita comes as the curtain raiser, right, to the climax of the Mahabharata, right? So Bhagavad Gita, both in its physical location of where it comes in the Mahabharata, it comes as a Vedasara of the Panchama Veda, which is Mahabharata in itself. So if Mahabharata can be the Panchama Veda, the Veda Sara of that Mahabharata becomes Bhagavad Gita, which is then should be logically the Upanishad. So though Upanishad has a different position, right? Vedas and Upanishads, they are called the Shrutis. They are the ultimate authority. All the Vedas, at least the top Vedas, they hold the ultimate authority. All the top Upanishads, they hold the ultimate authority in terms of getting to understand what is right, morality, and things like that, right? But others, like the other granthas can be Puranas, Itihasas, Smritis, and things like that. But here, Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita has that elevated status of being called as an Upanishad. It basically becomes equivalent to an Upanishad. So, and it's also called Upanishad mainly because it is the Panchama Vedas, complete Sara, complete summary. Brahma Vidyayam. This is the Brahma Vidya. We normally say, Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, Upanishatsu, Brahma Vidyayam. It's called the Brahma Vidya because it is the ultimate Vidya. It is coming from the Bhagavan himself. And here we have Bhagavan coming in two forms. One is the, Vasudeva Krishna, which is Bhagavan Sri Krishna himself. And then Vasishta Krishna, which is the Krishna Dvaipayana, who did the complete Sangraha, complete grasp of this entire message. So it is, and Vasishta Krishna, which is Krishna Dvaipayana, Bhagavan Vedavyasa, he is Badarayana, right? Badri Narayana. He is Sriman Narayana himself. So there are two avatars of Narayana playing a role, distinctive role here, right? Brahma Vidya. And this entire Vidya is coming from through them. To us, it is coming through them. So that's why we call it as a Brahma Vidya. It is also the Bhagavad Gita. Yoga Shastra. This is a very important word. Whenever we say Yoga Shastra, we have to understand that to be a very prescriptive guide for yoga, for achieving yoga. And yoga, in simplistic terms, should be understood to be upaya, a way out, right? Yoga Shastra. Right? So it is a prescriptive, like when we say Rasayana Shastra, it is a step-by-step guide to conduct a chemistry experiment. You might have seen, like you take this much ml of this solution, take so much ml in the pipette, drop so many drops into the burette, until the color turns into this dirty green, way. And the minute it starts becoming dirty green, add this solution, so many drops of that until the solution coagulates. So the description is very, very prescriptive, right? It's a very step-by-step guide. So that is the Rasayana Shastra. And the Paka Shastra, when we see the culinary guide, they are very, very prescriptive. Take 2.5 TBSP of this, take 4 chilies, crush them. So very, very prescriptive. The chances of somebody going wrong in such a prescriptive guide is very, very minimal. That's what I mean. While it is not very commandment oriented, it is not very didactic kind of a approach, but nonetheless, it is a very prescriptive guide, which means there is a lot of science behind it. when we take it's a step-by-step guide in a simplistic sense. This Bhagavad Gita can then be understood to be a very, very step-by-step guide. Yoga Shastra is not just a random, like, pick any shloka from the middle of the ninth chapter and start analyzing that in detail. Perhaps, I mean, there are strengths to it, but there is a lot more strength to the entire Bhagavad Gita when we take it as a chronologically laid out Yoga Shastra, a step-by-step guide. Understand the first chapter first, then understand the second chapter next, then understand the third chapter next. When we take it into that chronological order, I think the Yoga Shastra becomes even more complete. Okay, that's perhaps one interpretation of the word Yoga Shastra. That's why traditionally we have been calling it as the Yoga Shastra. Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvadi, like, in the conversation of Sri Krishna and Arjuna. And this chapter is called the Arjuna Vishada Yogo Nama Prasamodhyaya Sampurna. We have just completed chapter number 1, and we have just looked into the first shloka of the second chapter. Any questions, any interjections before I can proceed further? We have 10 more minutes. If there are any questions, I can quickly take them. If not, I can quickly cover a few more shlokas of the second chapter.
Bhartaji, I must make one comment.
Yes.
It looked like you were actually reading current affairs from the newspaper. That's how
Thank
it
you.
all sounded to me.
See, this is history. See, I'll tell you, one of the approaches that I am a big fan of. See, a lot of acharyas will keep telling us that every shloka in Bhagavad Gita has minimum 10 interpretations, and all 10 interpretations are legit, right? Now, within those 10 interpretations, there are 3 levels of meanings that will come through. Adi Bhautika meaning, which is the material. This is what the current affairs is. This is the history. This is history. I mean, no questions about it, no second thoughts about it. This is history. But the way the history has been presented to us by Maharshi Vedavyasa, the morality comes through. What is right, what is wrong, which is the Adi Daivika. Okay, it is the eternal, the celestial plane, because that is where the tattvas will come into play. The Adhisthana, devatas will come into play. Like, the good and bad should happen. Like, whenever Arjuna comes into play, we should see there is an Indra Amsha coming to play. Wherever Bhima comes to play, there has to be a Vayu Amsha that has to come to play. And Vayu, Indra, they're all celestial deities. They're all devatas, right? That should come to play. Right? Duryodhana is Kali Amsha. So all of these amshas will come to play. That is the morality part. So one, there is the current affairs part, the itihasa, the actual material plane. Then there is a bhautika plane, daivika plane, which is the celestial plane. Then there is a transcendental plane, adhyatmika, spiritual plane. So much so that people tend to understand that mamakaha pandavaha chaiva. There is a mamakara inside me. There is a panda inside me. There is an intellect and the ahankara inside each one of us, and there is a Kurukshetra happening inside each one of us. Right? There is a constant, and this entire Bhagavad Gita will help me understand that also. So it not only helps me understand what happened in the history, it not only helps me understand what was the morality behind it. See, because today, when we look into the history books of today, right? Even today, there is a debate happening whether Pearl Harbor was justified, whether the Hiroshima Nagasaki bombing was justified, whether the Auschwitz chambers, were justified. There is a pro and con for both, right? History, there is no way to learn from history the way it is presented today. There is a scope for, okay, both sides are right. Okay, everyone has their own version, is our popular belief. But the way the history was documented in our Sanatana Dharma, they left no doubt for the posterity. They left no doubt for the, no room for doubt for the next generation to contemplate. Was this right or was that right? That was actually, inferred very accurately. That's the level of history documentation that is needed if ever anybody has to learn anything. Otherwise, it becomes very blurry, right? Today, the way history has been presented to us of the last 300 years, today we still debate whether the freedom struggle was worth it, whether we would have been a better nation had British continued to rule us for a longer time. The history is not accurate now. This is exactly Kali Yuga, completely confusion driven. So definitely we have to understand the Aitihasika plane of this entire Grantha. Because according to me, I mean, my belief is that when we understand the material plane, it's easier to understand the material plane because we are all in the material plane. It's all touchy-feely. Then when we contemplate more and more and more, the morality will automatically dawn upon us. The adhyatma, the spirituality will automatically dawn upon us. And there are bigger granthas available. If you look at any bhashya, none of the bhashyas are devoid of morality and the spirituality. We have enough on the spirituality morality part. But I think where perhaps we don't have a strong explanation given is in terms of understanding the Bhautika elements of this entire Bhagavad Gita. If we can get ourselves firm in the Bhautika level, I think Adhyatma, spirituality will automatically become, one with us. Because otherwise, it becomes a question: Did this really happen? Is this really true? Okay, the proof lies in the material plane. Once we understand it in the material plane, once we understand it as a itihasa, I think we will not have any more doubts about the veracity, about the authenticity, right? So that's my belief. I hope we'll do some justice around that part, which is perhaps a bit of a missing element because of a trust issues, lot of trust issues. Did Bhagavad Gita really happen? Did they speak these 700 slokas? I mean, people should understand this is a sangraha by Maharshi Vyasa. This is not verbatim documentation. This is sangraha, right? The same Bhagavad Gita, the same conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, documented by the same Maharshi Vyasa in another scripture called the Agni Purana, is only three slokas. In just three slokas, the entire conversation is contained. Now, what can we make out of it? So we have to know this is basically a sangraha, right? The Megastanis' account of the Mughal India could be, or some ancient India could be different to somebody like Romila Thapar who would do that, right? So the documentation could be very, very different, but the history doesn't change. It did happen. Whatever was documented, partly it was true. I hope we do make some sense out of it. Yeah.
Brilliant, sir.
If there are no more questions, let me quickly move on. Maybe a couple of slokas and then we will close. We will at least, this is the first time we hear something called the Bhagavan-Vacha in the Bhagavad-Gita. Finally, so let's make a debut of the Bhagavan-Vacha, at least today. When we click on the next sloka number 2 of the chapter number 2 of the same web link that we have given, Shri Bhagavan-Vacha, Kutastva Kashmalamidam Vishame Samupasthitam Anarya Jushtamaswargyam Akirtikaram Arjuna. So I call this sloka very, very important. Uh, According to Vivekananda, these couple of slokas, the first two shlokas attributed to Bhagavan, contains the entire message of Bhagavad Gita. We will try and see, why some great like Swami Vivekananda, say something like that. Okay, the Padacheda for this shloka goes like this: Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutaha Tva Kutastva Kutaha Tva Kutastva Kashmalam Idam Vishame Samupasthitam Anarya Jushtam Aswargyam Akirtikaram Arjuna. Okay, only one sandhi. The first word, Kutahatva, Kutastva. That's the only sandhi. Let's see what the Anvaya, the prose order, sounds like. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, Hey Arjuna, right? Vishame Kutahatva idam Anarya Justam Aswargyam Akirtikaram Kashmalam Samupasthitam. He's asking you a question. So please note, the first words of Bhagavan is a question, right? In Bhagavad Gita, he's not giving Bodhana directly. And interestingly, you will also note the last verse of Bhagavan in Bhagavad Gita is also a question. He did not give any more Bodhana, right? So, points to note. Started with a question, ends with a question. Bhagavan Vacha, right? So, let's see what this means when we click on the dictionary. When we click on the dictionary, hey Arjuna, oh Arjuna, Vishame, in this hour of difficulty, or Visha is basically difficult time, right? In the hour of difficulty or the peril, in this 11th hour, right? Vishame, Kutaha, how, whence, from where, whence, Twa, to you, to you, Idam, this, Anarya Jushtam, Na Arya, Jushtam means like, Anarya type, unlike an Arya type. Okay, non-Aryan type, not cherished by the Aryan man. Okay, Aswargyam, not Swargapara, unheavenly. Akirtikaram, forfeiting the glory, one that but takes away the kirti. Akirtikaram, Kashmalam, the dejection, the stain. Kashmala is the stain, right? The mark. Okay, darkness of the soul. Samupasthitam, Samupasthitam, very nicely seated. Okay, three words that Krishna uses. Okay, Anarya, Aswargya, Akirti. Three words we use. I think when we say Yoga Shastra, right, this is where it begins. Every word of Krishna is weighted. Yeah, I don't know whether gold is a very appropriate term to use, but it's ultimately, amazingly weighted. Every word. Let us see what Aurobindo interpretation says. Okay, the blessed Lord said, Bhagavan Vacha, whence has come to you this dejection, this pain and darkness of the soul in the hour of difficulty and peril, O Arjuna? This is not the way this is not the way cherished by the Aryan man. This mood came not from heaven, nor can it lead to heaven. And on earth it is the forfeiting of glory. See, three things that he establishes, Krishna. One is Arya. What is Arya? See, Arya has been misinterpreted and we could say even bastardized as a term, right? Aryan, Dravidian, things like that. Dravida is a geographical identity, and Arya is a characteristic identity because in Mahabharata, the word Arya gets explained. Like, one of the definitions is that, kartavyam macharet karyam. Akartavyam anacharet. Once he performs the duty in all his actions, he's only performing the duty and akartavya manachari, and never does anything that is undutiful. Like, tishtati prakritachari, and the one who continues to remain in this, in his own nature, in his own natural kartavya, which is basically swabhava, right? Prakriti is swabhava, and kartavya is dharma. Tishtati prakritachari, sa arya iti vaisprataha. That person is known as Arya. So, in simplistic terms, I think Arya can be understood to be somebody who keeps performing his duty. Now, what is Arjuna doing? Arjuna is trying to abdicate his duty. So obviously he is not an Arya now. He is doing un-Arya type. Boss, you are behaving like an un-Arya. Right? That's the kind of a term you can. So you are giving up your kartavya. Aswargya. Aswargyam. Swarga. See, Swarga. When I think people who have Android can download an app called, there is something called Amarakosha. Okay, look at the meaning of the word Swarga. We can get different meanings. Right? Swarati, Giyate, the different ones. But one of the definitions of Swarga is that, it is the top of Meru. It is the topmost part of Meru, right? Meru is the Shikara among the Shikara. And Shikara means Unnati, right? It's the top. Shikarini, ascent. Now, Swarga Para, okay, Aswargyam, is that, it doesn't take you anywhere higher. Now, in a beautiful sense, Krishna is laying down the purpose of life. If you are a samsari, your three basic purposes in life are be Arya Jushta, be an Arya, be an Arya, not Anarya, be an Arya, which means be Kartavya Sadhaka. We all need to be Kartavya Sadhaka. Arjuna, please be somebody who abides by your Kartavya. Don't be Anarya, right? Be Kartavya Sadhaka. Always be seated in your Kartavya because that's the definition of an Arya. Kartavya Macharet Karya Manacharya no Akartavya Manacharet Tishtati Prakshachari Sa Arya iti Vaisprataha. Okay, one who always remains in the duty bound effort, he alone is known as an Arya. You be Arya Para, you be Arya Jushta. It means you be like an Arya, which means you become a Kartavya Sadhaka. The first core necessity for anyone in a samsara is be a Kartavya Sadhaka. Then be Swarga Para. Okay, don't be Aswargyakara. Don't be somebody who speaks as though nothing's coming from heaven. Now again, heaven, we have fanciful fairy tale description of the heaven with clouds passing around and some crazy creatures with the wings carrying us, transporting us and enjoying all the riches. But Swarga, basically, the basic etymological definition of Swarga is ascent, higher. If we remain where we are, we are actually falling backwards. This is, I think, something coming from one of the Ayn Rand books. If you remain where you are, if you don't proceed, if you don't progress, you actually fall backwards because the world is moving forward. The world, by design, is a forward looking world. Entropy, it's an ever increasing state of entropy, right? Which means there is progress happening constantly. Entropy is constantly being added, which means there is a lot of progress happening. By nature, if I just be what I am today, tomorrow, if without an inch of movement forward, I'm actually falling backward. So Aswargyam basically means false. You are getting stagnant. You are falling backwards. You are not going anywhere higher. which means on the contrary, look at the corollary of it. The path, okay, for life, the purpose of life is be Aryajushta, be Swargapara, and be Kirtikara. Don't do anything that can bring you bad name. Don't do anything that will give you Akirti. Akirtikaram Arjuna, what are you doing? This is nonsense. Vishame Samupastitam, Kashmalam, this is the stain. This is the taint. Don't bring this taint, which is Anaryajushta, Aswargya, and Akirtikara. On the contrary, if you really want to be proper, be Aryapara, be Swargapara, be Kirtikara, or rather be Aryajusta, which is be a Kartavya Sadhaka. Constantly, once you become a Kartavya Sadhaka, constantly try to achieve a higher and higher ascent, which is Swargapara. And then after getting that ascent, try to bring a good name to yourself. These are the three basic purposes of life Krishna is beautifully laying down, right? When you look at it that way, very beautiful. Krishna, in a very, very measured way, he brings the complete essence of what we need to learn. Unlike today, see, today the problem is that people tend to glorify indifference, whatever. Like, we have the W sign with the two thumbs joining to each other with the palm facing forward. We saw the W sign, whatever. Like, we become very indifferent. Some people are talking bad about you. Oh, I am what I am. I know who I am. They don't know who I am. I will be. But Akirti is a very bad thing. If 10 people, more and more people talk bad about us, I think it's a bad thing. So Krishna very beautifully lays down the premise around which this Bhagavad Gita has been spoken. The first part is we all need to, or Arjuna, because the transformation is kind of shown, the Yoga Shastra is shown with Arjuna as the prototype, right? The prototype is Arjuna. So the first transformation for Arjuna is to make him Arya Jushta, which means make him Kartavya Sadhaka, which means prevent him from abdicating the duties. Next, make him Swargapara. Okay, make him try higher and higher abodes. Try him, make him be a better himself than what he was earlier. Constantly inching himself up and up and up. And finally, Kirtikara. He has to achieve the biggest name, and that's what we hear in the last shloka. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partho Dhanurdara, Tatra Shrihi Vijayah Bhuti. Like, lot of name. Shrihi is a lot of richness, right? Bodhi Dhruva Nitir Matirimam. We'll see that a little later, but I think Krishna very beautifully lays down the premise under which we have to understand Bhagavad Gita, which is the first part that we need to understand is Kartavya Sadhana, being Arya Justa. Next is, maximizing our potential, which is constantly inching higher and higher and higher, which is in itself Swargapara, and then making the name for ourselves that will stay for eternity, like, which is the Kirtikara. Making name alone will remain forever, nothing else. We still take the name of Einstein, we still take the name of Bhaskaracharya, we still talk about Arjuna. Only the name alone survives for eternity. That's the moksha, that's the complete eternality, Kaivalya, whatever we have to say. Right? I think 10 minutes past the intended time. In 20 minutes time, we have another beautiful room around Pasuram, Tirupavai, being hosted by Pravina Bhagini. I would now stop for today. We will perhaps look at the second sloka spoken by Krishna, and then look at then